All right, welcome back to the Buckeye Podcast, episode 14. I'm your host, Jacob Trainer. Today we got a lot of information to cover, so I'm going to try and dive into it. And some big announcements in this one as well, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to start off by talking about my history with entrepreneurship. So I've always kind of had something fueling my passion for business, and usually it's something that revolved around a hobby of mine. So like when I was a kid, it was chickens and eggs. Then I kind of moved into like sports memorabilia, just like buy, sell, and trade on that. And then in my teenage years and early 20s, it was cars and engines. So I've kind of always like dominated Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, just being able to, I don't know, I consider myself to kind of have a gift for being able to see the value in things. And so I've done a lot of flipping and stuff like that. Utilizing those platforms. When 2020 hit, I kind of decided it'd be a good time to kind of move on from the cars and motors, just because of the timing in my life. So I literally sold everything that had to do with any of that. I was living in a different city, just didn't really make sense anymore. Even though I was still making a lot of money doing it, and I enjoyed it, I was just kind of wanting to start on the next path, if that makes sense. I was just kind of focused on getting back into the outdoors, which I talked about, kind of how all that went down, watching videos and stuff like that. And I remember one specific trip going to the farm where it was just me and my dad in the cabin. I believe it was like maybe around May or June. And just thinking to myself, like, this is where I like to be. Like, it was just, I don't know, gorgeous day out, and he'd done a lot of work to the cabin recently, and I was just, felt like the right place to be. For the past couple years, that's really all I've been focused on, is just enjoying my time in the outdoors and working on, my relationship with that again. But more recently, I started to get the itch. And if you're one of those people like me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I can only play so much defense before I got to swing the bat. Pretty much the only way I know how to sum that up. So that's why I started the whole Buckeye brand, as I've kind of gotten into, because I knew these things would be of value. All these activities I've been participating in, and the changes I've made in my life, just all this stuff over the past couple of years has, kind of made a turn for the better. And, it's something I recognize as, like, hopefully it can apply to your life. Because we're all just, we're all in this basically together. Like, we're all just trying to figure this game of life out. I realized that, first of all, I'll say I'm absolutely grateful for all the positivity from the people that have been involved in my project. That was my initial goal. I believe I mentioned it in the first podcast, was to provide value. And the 3 ways of doing that were entertain, educate, and inspire. So, I know I'm still really green in this and really new, but I kind of feel like I've figured out how to continue to do that. But at the same time, I think I've realized that there's also I've realized I'm sure there's many ways that you can continue to add value for people. And I don't know why this wasn't obvious to me in the beginning, but solving someone's problem, that's a huge way to add value. And I don't really think it fits into either what I call the EEI, the entertain, educate, and inspire, kind of bubble or cloud. So I started brainstorming, and it really took me a while. I thought hard on this. I wanted something original and genuine and honest. I didn't want to be scammy like you see a lot of these like influencers doing. I don't consider myself that. This is just a passion project of mine. I'm out looking to spread a message and help other people is really my goal in this. I'm not trying to get rich off of this or anything like that. So anyways, I realized there's a lot of misinformation regarding how to harvest deer. That was kind of my problem. I just light bulbed on. We're told all these different things, but there's actually like very little scientific data to kind of back up a lot of this or prove any of this. I'll get into those in a second, but I realized that, over the past couple of years, something I really started to use effectively were mineral sites. We'd put blocks and trophy rocks and salt and stuff like that out before. There's one particular product that really made me realize just kind of, I don't know, how you can really use these to better your hunting or, as an advantage, basically. Like this past year, the Twin 10, you heard Dad and I talk about on the second podcast, kind of recapping our season. Leonidas, the main reason we were able to study these deer the way we were was because of mineral sites. The most consistent pictures we had of them were right in front of my stand. I'll pull the picture up in a second of a mineral site that we have there. And that's kind of like the Twin 10 showed up a lot, okay? Like pretty much every week. But Leonidas, like I said, he was only there, he'd check in once a month. It must have been at the furthest point of his summer range, I guess. He wasn't really hunkering down there. But he was hitting that mineral site, and every picture we had of him was at that spot. I don't think any of them were from a different camera. But what I realized with minerals is like there's a lot of misinformation regarding them that is not backed up by any studies whatsoever. But I'm going to talk about a couple of the other problems real quick before I get into that. So there's obviously the cost problem, which is probably the most significant one. Most of these minerals, the most you can get at a time is 20 pounds, and the best deal you can get for that is around $20. So the total effectiveness of it. So there's how do I put this? A lot of the advertisement surrounding them, I guess you just call it false advertisement. The package or bag or bucket will say it does one thing when really no one really knows if that's what it does or not. So the main focus of these minerals is kind of off. And then you have the comparison to other things like corn, which is actually a food source. Whereas I would consider mineral like a supplement. And corn's great, but it really runs out fast is the problem with it, and it attracts all the other wildlife. So you get the birds and the squirrels and the trash pandas and all of that stealing your corn before you can really effectively use it. And then, once it's gone that fast, you're having to buy more and more, and so the cost of it really just doesn't make sense. How I guess I should really address this first is how we use mineral sites is pretty much for pictures. We don't really consider it like an attractant. It's to know what deer are in our area and kind of get a centralized location of where we might be seeing them. So we really don't run that many mineral sites. We kind of just put them where we're going to hunt, and that's it, because we're really not concerned of where else the deer are traveling. It doesn't, I've had to explain this to people before, it doesn't really make sense to put them, we have cameras all over. We have, a lot of cameras on our property for how small it is. And, that's great and all, but we're really just going to stick to, pretty much two main areas of where we're going to hunt, just because of the size of it and our history on the property. So it doesn't really make sense to go putting minerals in 10 different locations when you're not even going to hunt those spots. Not that I really see it as an attractant, but at the same time, it just, one, the cost is going to be ridiculous, and it's just not productive or effective. You should really only be concerned with the area that you're going to hunt. There's some some other problems with minerals, like some quality features. A lot of these minerals are basically salt-based. Salt's cheap, and it's it's great for deer. It's something they get a dopamine response from, the same way humans do, from consuming salt. So it's something they enjoy consuming. There's some studies saying that, like, in the summertime and spring, when vegetation's full of water, that they're going to need more salt to absorb the nutrients from their food and stuff like that. And I could kind of see that. But overall, I just see it as something that deer enjoy consuming versus it being much of a benefit from them, even though that it is something that animals need as part of their diet. High salt. So, if you're around $20 and you're mostly paying for salt, like, if you know anything about how much salt costs, seems like a little bit of a rip-off. And how a lot of companies combat this is they put artificial scents and artificial flavors, or even, I guess they can be natural scents and flavors too. They put these in their product, kind of, I talked to someone recently comparing it to how toy companies try to sell the toys to the parents and not the kids, because if they can get the parents to buy it, then a kid will play with pretty much anything. And that's kind of comparative to how I feel about some of these mineral products, is that where they're trying to sell them to humans, and it's not necessarily about what the deer enjoy. So they'll put these salt-based products out there, and they'll add artificial scent to it, and they'll say that since the deer are hitting it, it's got to be the artificial scent. When there's a couple people on YouTube and stuff have done their own studies, basically pointing out that side by side, they're really not that much different. And that might depend on your area and stuff like that. But I would say if you took the cumulative, you made the study broad across all of whitetail habitat and stuff like that. Any kind of, I don't know if mule deer use these minerals too, but if you spread it across the entire population, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference with these scents and flavors added into it. Something I'd be interested to see is just put the artificial scent or flavor out there versus just the salt, and see what that does. Because, when you're testing artificial scent and salt versus just salt, like, I feel like that's much different. You're kind of just comparing the same thing versus the two contrasting things in that argument. There's not a whole lot in these that actually do a whole lot for deer. The things you want to focus on specifically are like your micronutrients, so calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, manganese, iron, copper, iodine, cobalt. There's zinc. I don't know if I said that. There's so many micronutrients that go into the overall health of a deer population. So, I feel like a lot of these companies fail to include these things because, just because they get deer showing up on these salt licks and stuff, they feel like they can make the advertisement that it's going to grow bigger antlers and stuff like that. An antler is, it changes a little bit when it's from velvet to hard antler, but an antler is pretty much 80% protein, and the remaining 20% is micronutrients, mostly made up of calcium and phosphorus. So, like I said, you've got food and you've got supplement, basically. If your food's not in line, these minerals probably aren't going to do a whole lot for them. So, my main advice for people that are wanting to kill bigger deer and stuff like that is focus on your food sources. And then if you're like us and want to extract, one main goal, have a super healthy deer population all around from your fawns, does, bucks, whatever. Then focus on creating an overall healthy population with a food source, and then supplement micronutrients. So there's obviously a lot of false advertisement and gimmicks around this. But yeah, how it really affects the deer. There's not a lot of studies or research backing it up in a wild population. There are some in like what you'd call like a high fence scenario, I guess, farm raised deer, which they, pretty much all of them use mineral supplements because they're trying to grow some of the biggest deer possible. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the reason this is the case, because like you think about the people that do research or are allowed to do research on wildlife in most states, they're not testing with supplements and stuff like that. They're trying to keep everything as natural as possible. And I've talked about how supplements are kind of BS for humans before. That's simply because we have every single food available to us, readily available at any time, that we can pick and choose exactly what we need to build the optimal diet. Whereas in nature, it's pretty rough to do that for a deer. They go through a harsh winter where there's not much food available and stuff like that. So, they need to not only stock up for that time, but replenish when that is, as often as they can. So yeah, I'd kind of like to address now the whole big news of this, and that's basically I've created my own deer mineral, which is called Windego Deer Mineral, buck hut product. So I'd kind of like to address some of the quality features of this while I'm getting into all the specifics about the problems with the other ones. So like I said, you got that 20% of an antler that is micronutrients, being mostly calcium and phosphorus. So I've got a high calcium phosphorus blend with also that salt and other micronutrients that deer are going to need, not only when they're trying to put on antler, but for your does and stuff, when they're about to, when they're carrying fawns and about to deliver in the summertime. So yeah, this is a year-round blend. It's something that you're going to freshen up, however many, it's up to you really how much you want to devote to it, whether you're just putting it out during the summer while they're carrying fawns and putting on antler, or if it's something you want to try and use as a strategy. It's probably not going to be real effective in the rut for that, but getting pictures like early season, maybe late season, stuff like that. Or if you're like us year-round, those situations, as well as in the winter when food sources aren't as available and they're really needing those nutrients in their system. So yeah, you're probably saying, what is a Wendigo? Because most of you have probably never heard of that. So I wrote a little paragraph here just kind of explaining it. So, originating from the Great Lakes and Plains Native Americans, a Wendigo is a mythological creature that has been said to haunt the woods of the northern forests of the United States and Canada. They're often represented with a tall, slender, human-like body, and most often outfitted with a large set of antlers on a deer-like head. The creature is known for expressing extreme greed and hunger, which it attempts to combat with the consumption of human flesh. So yeah, that's basically, all it is. Just it's a giant creature that, kind of evil and wicked, and probably doesn't make much sense for deer hunters. So wrote one more paragraph addressing why I chose the name. So our goal at Buck Hut was to create a high quality product that had an original name to deviate from the repetitive antler this or buck that. We hope the name encompasses our commitment to assisting you in growing your own large antlered monsters wherever you may hunt. Focusing on the health of the entire deer population can make this possible. Let Windego Deer Mineral do the work so that your flesh doesn't have to. So yeah, just a little humor in there. That's the other thing with a lot of these other products is they're so generic and mainstream. And you go walking down the aisle, wherever you normally get them at, whether that's Walmart or Bass Pro or wherever, and they pretty much all look the same. They got a picture of like a deer on them, and it's the same names over and over. So for you picking out something, you're probably just going to grab whatever because you're not familiar with maybe what to look for, or not really seeing, you're honestly probably just going for the price at that point, because like it's kind of hard to deviate from what's what, so or decipher between what's what. So yeah, that's a mineral that's going to be coming out. Super excited for. I'll pull up the logo of it real quick. So yeah, there's our logo. Windego Deer Mineral, getting 30 pounds instead of the usual 20 pounds, and it's going to be for $20. So I really, like I said, I'm here to solve people's problems and provide value. And so I figured the best way to do that was get you more bang for your buck with these key micronutrients and minerals that are actually going to do stuff for your deer herd. And you're not just paying for a name or scents or flavors, stuff like that. So yeah, as you can see, promotes overall health and antler development. I'm not just blasting that you're going to grow 200 plus inch deer with it. If you focus on the overall health of your entire deer herd, you're going to have no problem growing big deer or bigger deer for your area, because they're getting all those things that they weren't getting before. So that's really my big picture on this, is promoting overall herd health instead of just slaughtering big bucks. It's really important, not only from a conservation standpoint, but just an overall deer hunting perspective, I guess. So I'm gonna pull up the mineral site now. In front of my stand, we've had that going for a few years now. You can see right in here, that's where we got our Wendigo mineral at. It's only about 20 yards from my stand, and that's pretty much, this is the location where we got all the pictures of the Twin 10 and Leonidas last year. So yeah, it's super effective tactic. You can see how torn up the ground is there. That's all from deer. That's not something we prepped or anything like that. That's not something you're gonna have to do with this product. You're just gonna pour it on the ground and let the deer do the work. Another problem with some of the other products, like the blocks, stuff like that, you can see we got a food block there. Those were super cheap, so my dad just kind of bought them and we're throwing them out, see what they do. But a lot of the like mineral blocks or salt blocks, only so much of that dissolves into the ground at a time. It takes a really long time for that block to break down. And while that's going on, like I said, there's only just a limited amount getting into the soil at a time. So if you've put those out before, they're cheap. And I'm sure they do a little bit of the same thing, but overall effectiveness, you're not getting as many of those nutrients into the soil. And that's really when the deer start attacking these things, is when they're in the dirt. Like how that's a powder out there right now. We've had pictures of deer hitting it, 5 minutes after we put the stuff out. But that's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that stuff into the dirt, because 90% of the time, that's when the deer are going to hit it. The number of times they hit it when it's deposited into the dirt versus when it's sitting on top, it far outweighs when it's in that soil. So that's another key focus of this is, you'll see some, I don't know, bigger form, solid material products like this that do take longer to dissolve. That's not really what you want to be focusing on. You want to get the nutrients into the dirt. That's where they're used to finding them, where they've evolved to find them for however many thousands of years now. So yeah, that's what you want to look for. Here's just another close-up picture of it. I will say 30 pounds of it goes a really long ways. When we were putting 20 pounds out before, that's kind of like the perfect number. That was more than enough for those 2 sites. You could probably do 3 sites with it, honestly. Yeah, you're gonna see it soak into the soil fast. So you might think, without having that prior knowledge, man, this stuff's gone quick. No, you really just want it to get broken down into the dirt. That way they're actively hitting it. So you might question as well, like the scents or the flavors, stuff like that, the attractants, we'll say. Are we leaving anything on the table, not putting that in? No, not necessarily, because like I said with salt, there's not much scientific data backing it, but there's a little bit suggesting that deer can smell salt from miles away, same way they could, corn or something like that. That I don't know necessarily about miles, but their nose is at least 10 times stronger than ours. They're going to find the stuff, and all it takes is one deer to find it, leave their scent there, start working up the dirt, and the other deer are going to be right on it as well. It's kind of the same thing with like the licking branch and all the mock scrapes, stuff like that we just put up, I don't know, a couple months ago up at the farm. It's the same concept. Once one deer starts using it, puts their scent on it, continuously hitting it or is around other deer. And deer communicate too. This is something that a lot of people don't consider. A lot of animals communicate, but deer especially. So then they start bringing in other deer when they visit these sites. It's just kind of a trickle effect. So my opinion, artificial flavors and scents, kind of a gimmick, but they're cheap and stuff like that. If it's something you felt like you needed to add to it, whatever. But I'm telling you, this stuff works. It's been proven, and I've done a lot of research, put a lot of time into it. I know exactly what compounds need to be in this stuff, just based off of the other products I've been using, and testing this stuff out myself. I'm really interested to see once the bucks start putting on full antler, getting some videos and some pictures and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty exciting to share. I'll have a little more information on it then. But yeah, how to find this stuff. It's on my website, listed with my phone number. You can give me a call. If you want to pick some up, I can meet you up with it, drop it off, whatever. I take electronic payment, stuff like that. Like I said, it's $20. I'm running a deal on it because two reasons. So one, obviously, I've said this, I want to get you the best deal possible. At the same time, I hate environmental waste. So to combat both of those things, I'm going to give you 10% off if you bring the bucket in good condition back to me on your second purchase. You'll get 10% off that next purchase, and that'll be something I'll continue every time you purchase it from there on out. That way I can, refurbish the buckets, recycle them, and keep this going. So bucket and lid intact, bring it back, you're getting 10% off on your next purchase. My goal is to eventually get this into stores like all the other big mineral products. But that might be something that's going to take some time. I'm looking at what shows and conventions, stuff like that I can bring it to, kind of get it out there and, spread my message of basically the direction we need to be focused on. Managing whitetail properties is overall herd health and not just growing ridiculously big bucks. Because ultimately that's going to be the only way to grow big bucks, is to focus on the health of your overall deer population. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. I'm considering taking it to the Winsville flea market on Sunday mornings and setting up shop there. I'm really excited for this project and the people and the conversation, stuff like that I'm going to get to participate in along the way. Kind of the same way this Buck Hut brand has kind of brought on a lot of attention, positivity, conversations, knowledge, stuff like that. Really hoping to keep continuing that with this new product. So Buck Hut Windego Deer Mineral. Get you some. Let me know how it works. Send me pictures. Love to talk to anyone about it if you have any questions. Like I said, buckhutco@gmail.com. My phone number is on the product, which might be kind of risky, but it's relatively new, and I'm really excited to get it going. So I don't have any problem answering phone calls or texts or anything like that. So hit me up. Next podcast is going to be turkey season recap with my dad. Check out Dylan, Ludus Lifestyle Podcast, www.buckhut.net. You're going to find centralized location for all of my outdoor content, products, merchandise, all that stuff. So check that out. And thanks for giving me a listen. Hope you enjoy the product, and I'm really excited. Thanks.